At 6:42 on a Tuesday morning, a hotel loyalty program did what my husband never managed to do in 11 years of marriage. It told me the truth. I was standing at my kitchen counter in Tulsa, coffee half poured, when the email came through. Your accounts have been merged for a more seamless experience. Beneath it, a trip summary, confirmation number, dates, a city I had never been to on a weekend I remembered clearly, because it was the weekend Mark told me he was in Denver for a supply chain conference. The itinerary said Charleston. Welcome back to the channel if you're new here. I tell true stories about the quiet moment everything changes. Not the shouting moment, the moment before the shouting. When you're still holding a coffee mug and reading a sentence twice. If that's the kind of story that gets under your skin, stay for this one and subscribe because it doesn't end where you think it does. I want to give you some background because you won't understand how long this had been running underneath our life. Mark and I had been married 11 years. He worked regional sales for a medical device company, which meant travel. A lot of it. 2 or 3 trips a month, sometimes more. I ran a small accounting practice out of our second bedroom. Numbers were my whole professional life. I balanced other people's books for a living. And somehow I had never once thought to balance my own marriage. For most of those 11 years, the travel felt normal. Boring even. He'd text a photo of an airport cinnamon roll. I'd tease him about expense reports. It was the kind of marriage that runs so smoothly, you stop checking under the hood. The first small thing was a jacket. 18 months before that email, I found a wool coat in his garment bag that wasn't his size. One size down. A color he never wore. He said it was left in a rental car, and he grabbed it by mistake, meant to return it. I believed him. Because believing him was easier than the alternative, and because I had never once had a reason not to. The second small thing was quieter. He started keeping his phone face down on the nightstand, instead of charging it in the kitchen like he always had. I noticed. I filed it under stress. The way you file away a lot of things when you're not ready to open the folder. Then came the loyalty program merge. I want to pause here and ask you something, because I ask this in almost every video and I mean it. Have you ever had a piece of ordinary technology tell you something a person had been hiding from you for years? Something as boring as a rewards account? Write it below. One word is enough. I promise. This gets stranger. I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop, the way I sit down with the client's books when a number doesn't add up. I don't get emotional with numbers. I get precise. The merged account showed 6 trips over the past 2 years that didn't match anything on our shared calendar. Charleston twice. Nashville. A resort outside Asheville 3 nights, breakfast for 2 included in the folio. And one more that stopped my hand over the keyboard entirely. A hotel 40 minutes from our own house, booked on a Tuesday I remembered specifically, because it was the night I'd stayed late doing a client's quarterly filing, and come home to an empty driveway, and a text that said he was stuck at the airport. The reservation was under a name I didn't recognize. Not his. Not mine. A last name I'd never heard him say once in 11 years. Wraith. 2 guests. 1 room. I didn't call him. And I want to be honest about that because I think a lot of people would have, and I understand why. But I've spent my whole career learning that the person confronted first is the person who controls the story second. So instead, I did the only thing I know how to do when something doesn't add up. I built a ledger. Over the next 9 days, I cross-referenced everything the loyalty portal gave me against his company travel calendar, which, foolishly on his part, synced to our shared family calendar for tax purposes. Every trip that matched a real client visit I marked green. Every trip that didn't I marked red. By the end of 9 days I had 14 red entries going back 2 years and 3 months. 14. I found her name attached to a checked bag fee on one reservation, misfiled under a joint loyalty tier the hotel chain had auto-linked, because someone at some point had used the same phone number to enroll both accounts. His. Not a coincidence. Not a stranger's. I didn't cry in that kitchen. I want you to know that. I made a spreadsheet. 14 tabs. 1 per trip. Dates and cities and dollar amounts. Because if I was going to lose 11 years, I wanted to know exactly what I was losing them to. On the 15th day, I sat across from Mark at that same kitchen table and slid the laptop toward him instead of raising my voice. He looked at the screen for a long time before he said anything. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to be sure," I said. Which was the point. He didn't deny it. I think some small, tired part of me had hoped he would, just so I could feel the satisfaction of proving him wrong out loud. Instead, he said the thing I still think about. "I never meant for it to become this much of a life." As if a double life were weather. As if it had simply happened to him. The way rain happens to a windshield. I told him I wasn't going to scream, and I wasn't going to beg, and I wasn't going to pretend the spreadsheet didn't exist so we could go back to a version of our marriage I now understood had never been real to begin with. I told him I needed the house until it sold. And after that, nothing else from him. He moved out 6 days later. If there's one thing I want you to take from this story, it's that the truth rarely announces itself with a slammed door or a scene in a parking lot. Most of the time it slips in through something boring. A merged loyalty account. A checked bag fee. A name that shouldn't be there. Pay attention to the boring things. They're often the only things that don't know how to lie. 6 months later, I sold the house, closed out the joint accounts, and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with a kitchen just big enough for one laptop and one very honest ledger. My accounting practice is doing better than it ever did. Funny. What happens when you stop spending your best hours balancing something that was never going to add up? If you've ever found the truth in the last place you expected to look, tell me about it in the comments. I read every one. And if you want more stories like this, make sure you're subscribed. Because next week's story starts with a single receipt. And it gets worse before it gets better.